welcome to Play Arkham. This is the first episode in a new serie where I'm going to play Arkham Horror, the card game. This first episode is just a quick intro and some rules summary to understand the game a bit. The game itself is a board game or card game from Fantasy Flight Games. It was released in 2016. The thematics of the game is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and an ongoing theme in Lovecraft's work is that humankind is completely irrelevant in the face of the cosmic horrors that apparently exists in the universe. And Lovecraft made frequent references to the Great Old Ones, which is a loose pantheon of ancient powerful deities from space who once ruled the earth and have since fallen into a death-like sleep. The most prominent old one in popular culture is of course Cthulhu, which is imprisoned on Earth in the sunken city of Relay, but there are also other old ones. The game itself takes place in the early 20th century in Arkham, which is a fictional city located in Massachusetts, USA, and strange and mystic things occur, and you play the role of an investigator that is determined to find the source of these events. The game itself is a cooperative 1 to 4 players game. It's based on campaigns, and each campaign is divided into scenarios. And when the players play the scenario, their actions will affect the storyline for the following scenarios, and if they reach specific goals, it will also grant them experience points. Experience points can then be used to gain better cards between scenarios. When you start the game, you need to choose an investigator to play, and there are 5 different classes of investigators. The fellow here, Roland, is a guardian character class, and the main trait for guardians is that they feel compelled to defend humanity and thus go out of their way to combat the forces of the mythos. They have a strong sense of duty and selflessness that drives them to protect others and to hunt monsters down. The next class is the Seeker, and in the core set the Seeker is Daisy Walker, and Seekers are primarily concerned with learning more about the world and about the mythos. They wish to research forgotten lore and map out uncharted areas and study strange creatures. Then we have the Rogue class, and rogues are self-serving and just out for themselves. Wily and opportunistic, they are always eager for a way to exploit their current situation. The Mystic class is they are drawn to and influenced by the arcane forces of the mythos. Many have spellcasting abilities, able to manipulate the forces of the universe through magical talent. The last class is Survivors, and they are just everyday people in the wrong place at the wrong time, simply trying to survive. Ill-prepared and ill-equipped, survivors are the underdogs who rise to the occasion when their lives are threatened. Deck building is a big part of the game, and each character has their own rules on how to set up their deck on the backside of the investigator card. For instance, Wendy Adams, she needs to put the deck use 30 cards and survivor cards from level 0 to 5, rogue cards level 0 to 2, and neutral cards 0 to 5. From the beginning you don't have an experience, so you can only buy level 0 cards since they don't cost any experience. But later on you can switch to higher level cards. There are also some requirements for the character. Often that is a good item and some kind of weakness. Each character also has a random basic weakness that are added when you put up the game. Each investigator also has a default setup for the deck, so that's a recommended way when you are starting out and trying a new character. When the game is set up and you are ready to play, there are some different things I would like to mention. The main storyline for the game is in the agenda and the act decks. The act deck is the storyline that the investigator would like to proceed. This is the way they can go further into the story, and often on the front side there is something they need to do, and when they have done that, like for instance in this case, they need to collect some clues, and when they have done that they can flip the card and read the things on the back side and continue with the next act. The agenda, on the other hand, is the mythos part, where the mythos tries to drive the story forward, and when the agenda advances there's often something bad happening, so you want to be faster than the agenda by flipping the act before the agenda does. And often when the agenda is ended, then you lose the game. The third part that is important to know is the locations, and each location has an icon on the upper left corner, and in the lower part of the location card there is some circles where you can see which location you can move to. In this case you can't move to any location. The location card has two sides. One unrevealed side that you can read when the location comes into play, and then the other side which you can read when you enter a location. And then you can read some more information and also have two new numbers. One in a black circle to the left in the middle of the card, that is the shroud value or the difficulty to find clues in this location, and to the right there is the number of clues that you can find in the location. The game is divided into rounds, and each round is divided into 4 phases. The first round you always start at the investigation phase, so you skip the mythos phase in round 1. And in the investigation phase there is each investigator can perform 3 actions each. And an action can be to investigate a location, to move to another location, draw a card from your deck to your hand. You can also play an asset by paying the cost for the card and put it into play. And you can activate an action ability on a card. You can fight an enemy or evade an enemy. When the investigation phase is done, the enemy phase enters, and this is where all enemies act. And if there aren't any enemies, you can skip the enemy phase. The enemies first move if they are hunters, and then they attack the investigators at their location. After the enemy phase, the upkeep phase is started, and this is where you clean up the board and reset any card that has been used or exhausted, and you gain 1 resource and can draw a card from the deck to your hand. And then the round ends and the second round or the next round begins. The mythos phase starts by placing 1 doom token on the current agenda, and if the number of doom tokens on the agenda is equal to the number on the agenda, then the agenda should advance. Then each investigator draws an encounter card, and these are bad for the most time. Skill test is one of the main things that you do when you try to see if you succeed in a task or not. And skill tests often are based on one of your ability scores. Like if you take the investigate action, then you use the lore ability and compare that to the shroud value. And if you don't do anything else, you need to draw a chaos token and adjust your ability value with the chaos token and compare it to the difficulty value, in this case the shroud value of 2. So in this case, if we try this out, I have 3 in lore, 2 in shroud. So if I just doesn't get anything less than -1, then I would succeed. So -1, that was a success. So then I would go ahead and take one of these clues to my card. If I, on the other hand, drew another token, like the cultist token, then I need to check my reference card and see what does the chaos or the cultist token mean. In this case, if it counts like -1, and if I should fail the test, I take an horror damage. The skull token is -X, where X is the number of ghoul enemies at my location, and the tablet is -2. There are some other icons, like the, not that one, but we have an elder sign, which is like a star. You can also see this on the investigator card. And when you draw an elder sign, then you read the effect on the investigator card. And then you have the tentacle sign. There we have the elder sign, but we have the red tentacle sign. Perhaps you see it flip by. And that's an auto fail. There we have it. The chaos bag is set up depending on what difficulty level you choose. And as the more difficult you choose, the more difficult tokens are present in the chaos bag. Also, the effects of the cultist tablet or skull tokens are more difficult if you choose hard or extreme. When you do a skill test, you can also use other cards to commit to the test for extra bonus. So if we take this shroud test again, and we have the lore of 3, I can check my cards in hand and see if there are any icons that are the same as the lore icon in the left corner. And I have the burglary card, which has the lore token, and then I could commit this card to the test by discarding it, and then I will get a bonus of 1 lore. I could also discard or commit this card as well, and then I get a bonus of 2, so that gives me a lore value of 5 versus 2. And when I draw, I could succeed even if I get to -3. That would reduce my 5 to 2, which is equal to 2, and would let me succeed in investigating the study once more. That concludes our first episode, the quick intro and rule summary for Arkham Horror, the card game. In our next episode, I will start with the first scenario in the campaign Night of the Zealot, which is the campaign in the core box.